Welcome back, fellow citizens of JAR, to Deron for Super President. This is the show in which we try to build our own country, take over the entire universe, and fix all of the universe's problems. If that sounds like something you think you might like, please hit the subscribe button down below to be counted as a citizen of JAR and to join us on our path to glory. Have you ever wondered when you put out a public statement about your life, it's somewhere on Twitter or Facebook, something like, I pooped or I ate a can of beans. But when you do that, right next to the horrible and awful things that you've said is your own face or egg, whatever you decided to put instead of your face. But when you run an entire country, you've got to wonder, where does that face come from? And so, in honor of the actual picking of who will go against who in the largest presidential penis fight in the entire world, the United States, we will be going over and critiquing all of the presidential portraits throughout history. Let's go through all 44 presidential portraits of the United States history. First off, George Washington, first President of the United States, 1789 to 1797. Now, if you look closely, he just looks mad that someone didn't clean up this room before we even went into this portrait. The tablecloth isn't down, they shoved all of their books under the counter, all of the ink is going to dry up because that pen is out, and he's got his beating stick ready to tell you that not only is he not afraid to run a country, but he's not afraid to whoop the person that shoved all the books under the ground. Next up, we have President John Adams, looking like he is too bald, so he needed a wig, but instead of going for a wig that made him look like he had hair, he instead picked a wig that started here and kept being bald for a while and then showing his regular bald. Like a mullet wig, but no business in the front, just party in the back. We have Thomas Jefferson, who has that exact skater kid hair, as though he just took off his snapback and is grinding some pipes and hitting some bong. I don't mean to say that any of this even slightly represents these people, but boy, if it did, huh? We have James Madison, who either the artist gave up halfway through and decided to paint his entire body out of the purest night black, or he decided to wear the shadows of night purely on his own skin. Beyond that, you have James Monroe, a little bit artsy, little bit fartsy, and deciding that I'm not even going to dignify you with a look. I'm going to look over here. For as long as it takes, because paintings took like 8 hours, probably 7 in this one, because in the bottom third, they really just didn't paint. John Quincy Adams, here to show you his Tinder pics. He's got tasteful sideburns, he's reading a book right now, he's hidden books all around the entirety of his room, and he's stroking a little picture of George Washington, because now, on every Tinder pic, you have to ask, which one is you in this photo? Now, this picture of Andrew Jackson was painted in the 7 hours immediately following him dropping his favorite flavor of ice cream cone on the ground. They went back to the ice cream stall, but sadly, Rocky Road was sold out at that point. Martin Van Buren coming back to really show how the Tinder pics are done. I stand up. It means I'm athletic, though I have a chair because I'm fancy. I've got no hair up here. I moved it all to the sides, and an epic Moses parting of the seas way. And I've got racks on stacks of paper, and or some paper I folded to look like money. Next, we have William Henry Harrison, 9th President of the United States, and I guarantee you, none of your friends have ever heard of him. If you look closely, he's not quite looking directly at the painter. It's a little off to the side. So my thought is they got him to be a good boy and sit still because a chihuahua was sitting right there being a good boy as well. Also, they never quite got him to fold his collar down, so they did, once he was sitting still, they had to do the painting right then before it was too late because he wanted to go out and play with the boys in the street. Now, John Tyler, a little bit of a different one. He wanted to show how badass and cool he was. Watch me crumple and rip this paper. But it takes 8 hours to paint a painting, so he had to hold the newspaper to show that he thought it was trash. Me being Canadian and knowing almost nothing about any of these peoples, I feel make this 10 times more accurate. Please comment on my historical accuracy of my reviews down below in essay form, double-spaced, MLA formatting. James K. Polk, 11th President of the United States, likes to make you think he's a kindly boy, but not only did he want to push to invade parts of Canada, on top of that, he's also got his racks on stacks in the back corner, but he tied them in a bow to show you he's rich and fancy. Zachary Tyler, 12th President of the United States, is actually the guy that goes to those stores in the mall and near the mall that hold tons of ceremonial knives. They have a collection of 12 to 14 knives, none of which work very well, but they look really cool. They're the coolest knives. They have so many spikes, they point in all directions. I'll stab you and me at the same time with my curvy Swiss knife. Next, we have Millard Fillmore, who, for some reason, of his one presidential profile pic, make the entire thing about how he's pointing at a picture of someone else where it's like, hey, Dylan? Hey, you in the back. Yeah, you, Dylan? I've got you dead to rights. I have you on this newspaper. You cannot fight me. You cannot hide from me. I got you understood, Dylan. You cannot take my Beyblades. They are mine. My mom gave them to me. You still have 2 left. You said you borrowed them, but you never gave them back, and now you're in the newspaper. Franklin Pierce, I have very little to critique because realistically he just sort of looks like the valedictorian. He's even got some of his homework that he's still working on because he really wants to put the last few minutes into it and work on his thesis statement because it's worth about 12% of his final essay and it's very important to him. James Buchanan, the 15th president of the United States and the first one to be on MySpace. He's got his bloom filter on so much that you start to lose all detail in his skin and he looks exactly like what you put on those ceremonial plates and then hang on your wall, and then have your grandkids break one day. Abraham Lincoln, somebody who's not only posing like the thinker to show that he's dignified, but also to show that his brains are very important to him, and he hopes that they'll stay inside of his head. I feel like Andrew Johnson was so impatient that they only got about 15 minutes into the painting where they got the face and the collar and stuff, and then he left, and the painter was like, this is my day, I guess. I'll just paint the rest of it black and call it a day. Here we have a pictures of Ulysses S. Grant. He didn't even know he was in a painting. This was just him in his evenings watching Wheel of Fortune for the 45th rerun, or he was dead. I can't confirm either of those. Rutherford B. Hayes trying to do the equivalent of holding a fish in your Tinder painting by taking his presidential portrait outside. But you can tell that it's not going to go very well because that cloud is about to rain and ruin everything that he worked on. James A. Garfield, no critiques here, just a nice beard. It kind of looks like he's posing to be the side of a coin, actually, right now. Chester A. Arthur, who, might I say, of all the people so far, looks like the absolute boss of the bunch, with the greatest facial hair of the group, just chillin', oh, you caught me? Oh, I guess I'll pose for 8 hours for a painting. I'm just wearing my boss coat, and my super cool mustache that I just brushed for 20 minutes. I guess I'll just be here. I guess I will. Take my portrait. Grover Cleveland. My favorite piece of trivia about the American election is that Grover Cleveland is the 22nd and 24th president, meaning Trump is actually the 44th person to hold the office, but he's the 45th president, meaning you're never right, and you can't win. On top of that, the painter in this painting had a really hard time trying to do arms, so it kind of looks like he has one hand on the chair, and then the other hand, it looks almost like somebody else's hand has been placed there, because his hand was behind his back or something, and they couldn't quite get the perspective right. Benjamin Harrison beyond that, not only with his chest out wide, his racks on stacks in the corner, his wall that he had washed for this painting because he knew how much it meant to his grandmother, but his life behind the scenes may have been a train wreck. I don't know. I refuse to look up any of these people, and I have almost no knowledge of old presidents, so deal with it. Next you have William McKinley, who's so rich that he says, I'm so rich that I don't even need my own eyes to see. I use these golden glasses. Oh, this in my other hand, this is just a receipt for all of the Bentleys I just bought, and cars, and golden jewels. This is me. Theodore Roosevelt, standing next to the banister, is almost if to say, this banister, it's 1,000 feet long. I just slid down the entire thing. Did I crush both my nuts on this post? I did, but it was worth it. In William Howard's Taft painting, I'm convinced he died 20 minutes before they started, and they just propped him up in the nearest chair, ready to go. Woodrow Wilson in this picture just finished reading his favorite book, and was just leaning forward to stand up when they started painting, and they went, oh, now don't move, Woodrow. I hate this. I think Warren G. Harding wanted to get his picture outside to do the Tinder thing, but instead stood in front of another picture of the outside world and had his painting painted in front of a painting to really show off not only his laziness, but his lack of commitment. In this picture, we find Calvin Coolidge, about 30 seconds after his mom took away his skateboard, and won't give it back for 8 to 10 hours until the painting is over. Herbert Hoover, in this picture, really just wants to show off his cool new globe he got for Christmas. It's like those pictures you see of people when they have a Nintendo 64 or GameCube, and then they hold it and they look too excited for what they just got, and their parents take a picture of it forever so that they can be shamed. Thanks, parents. Next, we have Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was so busy actually being useful as a president that they had to kind of get the side view of him while he was at a table. He's a good boy. I'm convinced this is not actually a picture of Harry S. Truman, but that he didn't show up and they had to take a picture of his accountant instead. Now, you know, Mr. Eisenhower, you can turn the chair. You can turn the chair and look at the painter man. I have a feeling they painted this painting after what happened, and I think this still might be too soon, so let's just move on. Next we have Lyndon B. Johnson, and the only thing I really want to know is, what's with the handkerchief in the pocket? Because they either usually fold it up or have it down, so it's either that he doesn't know it's there, or that he specifically crumpled it up and used it to show you that I actually use all of my tissues. There's a dog barking outside. Next, in this painting, we have Richard Nixon, who in his hand holds all of the Facebook rants that he's about to post on your wall because he doesn't agree to you about how Naruto ends. And he's wrong. Next, we have Gerald Ford. Not something that's an issue then, but can you imagine if he did this painting nowadays and instead of having that pipe, he had a jewel, or he just had a vape, and it's just said sick fat clouds at the bottom, and instead of his head, you just had this huge cloud of vape fog. Jimmy Carter, sitting here, looking a little more Mr. Rogers than any other human, except for maybe Mr. Rogers in this one. Ronald Reagan, between two columns, as if to say, I want a painting with a little of column A and a little of column B. That's the best joke I came up with. Let's move on, don't acknowledge it. Beyond that, we have George Bush. I'm convinced that this painting wasn't actually supposed to be about him, but the painting behind his head. And he saw a painter working and decided to just walk into frame. And they couldn't stop him because he was president. And then at the end of it, they went, okay, I guess that was about you then. Next, we have William J. or Bill Clinton, who, realistically, this picture and every other picture of his is a Tinder picture if you try hard enough. Next, we have George Bush Jr., the only one in the Bush family who learned not to block the paintings you're standing in front of, and also showing off his favorite chair that he sits in sometimes. That's what chairs are for, don't argue with me. Camera age, in which no longer are we willing to wait for 8 to 10 hours for someone to paint us. Barack Obama instead folds his arms and gets his friend Jeremy to take the picture for him. Credit where credit's due. It was actually done by Pete Souza, but this is also the single, I would say, most generic picture ever taken by humankind, as it's almost impossible to say anything about it positive, negative, or neutral. And next and finally, we have the picture of Mr. Ronald Rumpus, one of which you may seen many, many times before. I'm betting in this picture, even though it took him 5 seconds to take it, he forced the photographer to sit there for 8 hours, just to show him who's boss. And that grin of his really says, I took a poop in your bed. And your stove. You can't do anything about it. Check your microwave. Look behind your ear. We will take these lessons that we've learned from these various presidential photos and one day make our own. Something regal, defined, a little bit tindery and a little bit flirty, but a little bit good boy. And all together, one day, I'll have my own photo to hang on a wall, maybe painted, maybe photographized, who even knows? So this has been your super presidential candidate, Deron, signing off for Saturday, saying welcome to JAR. JAR takes all kinds. You are family now. Please join us this week and every week. We go up every single Saturday and Monday. Don't forget to check down below in that description for links to fun things. And I will leave you, as always, with our viewer-submitted motto for JAR in the viewer-submitted conlang for JAR, which is Mam donapamen len. Miu donapamen eia liita miu mam liita. See you Monday. And this episode is brought to you by Luke, and also by Rachel. Two wonderful people that are also capable of taking pictures themselves that don't look horrible. And that is something that is not appreciated enough in today's society. Thank you.